and the price of exchange or currency.
Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alright, so this is, again, just to recap what we've covered so far. Okay, just open that window behind you a little bit. Just let the bit of... No, all the way. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, so this is to do with Rahn. Rahn, like we said, is security, collateral, pawning, mortgaging. There's a new word I found as well. Is it hypertulation? Hypertulation, I don't know. There's a new word I found. It was a bit long, nice and long word. Yeah. So we're going to be using the word security or pawning or mortgaging. So this concept is there for a person to be able to buy and sell with confidence. Yeah, because you're a buyer, you're a seller, we got a business, you obviously want to sell things, and if you're a customer, you want to buy stuff. But the thing is, sometimes what happens is that the item might cost a lot, and the customer doesn't have the money there and then, and you don't want to lose him. So you're scared if you don't take money off him, he might run off. And at the same time, that you want to be able to make him feel as though that you can trust him. So this is why Rahn is something which is considered. And we said in Rahn, there is the two individuals, the guy who gives the security. Yeah, so let's say Ahsan is the customer. Yeah, and Shakil is the seller. So Shakil is selling, let's say, a car, and Ahsan is the one that's buying the car. So Ahsan doesn't have the money now, he's going to have the money by Friday. But Shakil wants something to guarantee that he's going to pay the money. So Ahsan says to him, look, if I give you some collateral, if I give you a security, if I leave my mobile phone with you, or if I leave my house deeds with you, would that be okay? Right? So this is what he's doing. So he is known as, the guy who's leaving the security with the other guy, he's known as a Rahin. The guy with whom the security is being left is called a Murtahin. And the security itself is called the Rahn. Yeah? Or the Marhoon. Okay, and we said that there has to be an acceptance, offer and acceptance of the security itself. Yeah, it has to be an offer and acceptance of security itself. So if Ahsan says to Shakil, I'll give you my mobile phone, he goes, I don't want it. So if he says, I don't want it, therefore he's rejected the offer. So he has to give something else, or he has to work around that. Yes, and the Rahn is complete by possession. So once possession is taken by Shakil, Shakil now has possession of this item, and this item belongs to Ahsan. However, it's in the possession of Shakil legally. And Shakil does not have to give the mobile back until Ahsan pays the full amount of what he owes, every penny. Everyone got that? Okay.
Ustad, is there a time limit for this?
Time limit? No.
It's open-ended.
Open. Okay, now, we said previously, وَلَا يَصِحُ الرَّهَنْ إِلَّا بِدَيْنٍ مَضْمُونٍ. Rahn is not valid unless it is in exchange of a debt that he's liable for. So a debt that he's liable for, most debts are debts that are based on liability. In other words, something which you have to give in exchange of something else. There are some debts where you're not liable yet. They're called debts. Like for example, there's something called a dark. Yeah, a dark, which basically is like, if I go to the shops, yeah, and Arib's the shopkeeper, and I say to Arib, I want to buy this, and Arib says to me, look, I don't know if you'll pay the money. So there's someone else there, and someone else steps in and says, you know what, if he doesn't pay, I'll pay. Yeah, this is known as a guarantor. Okay, this is a guarantor. Now, same masla again. I want to buy something of you. I want to buy your book of you. So if I want to buy this book, I'm scared that someone later on might come and say that book didn't belong to Arif, that actually belonged to me. A third person comes around. who is the true owner of that book. And sometimes this happens, you buy a house of someone, but you're scared, maybe he's the true owner. And the true owner will turn up, right? Sometimes it happens in, inheritance, where someone has claimed this is their inheritance. They've sold it off to someone else. A few years later, the true heirs, or the other people who share ownership they had, they come along and say, this house is ours, and they bring legal documents, and you got to give it back to them. And you've built extension on there, and you put, all these fittings into that house. Have you got that? So what happens, a third person from his side comes, and he does what is known as dark. So basically he steps in, and he says, I guarantee you that if it doesn't work out, if a third person comes and they claim the item for themselves, I personally will get the money back to you. See, now that person, he cannot take a rahan, because there's no liability here. Have you got that? There's no liability in this case. So this is why he says it has to be a dain madmoon. Anyway, let's get back to this. Right.
That's called a contract of indemnity.
Indemnity, contract indemnity, yeah?
That's the difference between a guarantee and an indemnity.
Okay.
One is guaranteeing an existing debt.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee. And an indemnity is where, should you suffer a
Okay,
loss
that's
in the
it.
future, then I'll step in and
That's
cover
it.
it.
So that's the dain without غير مضمون. Yeah, غير مضمون, which there's no liability for, because it hasn't really been incurred upon the person yet. Yeah, it's something in the future. Yeah, so indemnity. Everyone got up there? Okay, next. Now look at this. This is not explaining this now. So let's say, for example, Ahsan, let's go back to this masla. Ahsan, he buys this car of Shakil, and he leaves with him a mobile phone, right? He is called the Rahin, he is called the Murtahin, okay? Now, when he, is it the mortgager and the mortgagee? Is that the
Mortgage or mortgage.
mortgagor and mortgagee? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically what happens here is, let's say this mobile phone gets damaged in Shakil's ownership, or possession. He drops on the floor, drops into water, something happens to it, smashes, yeah, gets stolen. Now what happens to that? Because remember, that mobile phone was a security for that car. So in this case, what will happen is, هو مضمون بالأقل من قيمته ومن الدين. So you look at the phone, you go to the markets, you find out how much did this cost, the qima, the market value of this phone was. And you look at the debt, in other words, what was owed to him. And there you look at whichever one was less. Yeah, whichever one was less, that's what he basically lost. Yeah. So for example, like, let's say the car was worth £1,000 and the mobile phone was worth £1,000, right? So now he lost the mobile phone. So what happens? Because they're both the same value, the mobile phone will cancel out the debt that he owes for the car. Let's say, for example, the mobile phone costs 1,500 and the car costs 1,000. If he perished the mobile phone, now 1,500, 1,000 cancels that 1,000, and then the 500 is going to be a liability upon him now. So he owes, it's flipped over now. Now he owes Ahsan 500. And let's say the mobile phone was worth 500 and the car was 1,000. If the mobile phone gets damaged, what will happen? 500 will cancel out 500,
Still have to pay another.
and Ahsan owes 500. Everyone understand that?
So you're buying the car and you're giving the phone as a guarantee. Is that the example you're giving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember that? So وهو مضمون بالأقل. So it is, when the rahan is madmoon, is liable with the lesser of the two items, the qima, its value, and the debt. Yeah. So in other words, it's not like this. I mean, what he's saying is, it's not like this. If he damages the phone, whatever the debt was is cancelled out. Not like that. Right? So you look at whatever the phone was worth. فَإِذَا حَلَكَ الرَّهَنْ. So if the rahan, the mobile phone, gets damaged or destroyed, perishes, في يد المرتهن, in the hands of Shakil, وَقِيمَتُهُ, whilst its value, وَالدَّيْن, and the debt were both equal, both £1,000 each. صار المرتهن, the murtahin now is mustawfiyan, has fully received his debt, the credit that was owed to him, لدينه. Hukman, legally, not realistically. Realistically, he's supposed to receive from him cash. But because he hasn't received that, but he destroyed the phone, legally, in the courts will recognize him to have received what he was owed. That's what hukman means. So the opposite of hukman is حقيقة. وإن كانت قيمة الرهن أكثر من الدين, and if the value of the rahan was more than the value of the debt that was owed to him, what's going to happen?
Nothing balances.
Yeah. So the 1,000 for the 1,000 and the 500 extra. فالفضل أمانة. The 500 extra that the phone was worth 500 more than the car, is going to be a liability with shakil, amana, trust. وإن كانت قيمة الرهن, and if however the value of the rahan is أقل من ذلك, is less than the value of the car, let's say 500, سقط من الدين بقدرها, that will cancel out from the liability, the debt, the amount that it was worth.
Can you agree to sort of change this ruling or vary this ruling? So in this example, I say to Ahsan, I'm going to take your phone, but should I damage or lose it, then the maximum value is the value of the car. Can you agree that?
No. Because then that would become a new transaction.
Right.
That's like a bilateral transaction.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like two transactions you're doing in one.
Right.
I mean, it's possible, but it wouldn't come under the rules of rahan.
Right.
Does that make sense? For example, like let's say it's basically two debts cancelling each other out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, me and Brother Sajid, I buy from Brother Sajid a laptop, yeah, for £500, and at the same time, I'll say to Brother Sajid, look, I'll sell you my mobile phone for £400. Yeah. So in other words, I owe you 500, you owe me 400. Let's cancel out the 400. I just owe you 100 now. Does that make sense? So it'll be like a bilateral sort of. Okay. وَرَجَعَ الْمُرْتَهِنُ بِالْفَضْلِ, and the murtahin, shakil, will receive or be reimbursed with the whatever's still outstanding. Everyone got that? Everyone understand there? Okay, next masala now. Okay, property, ownership of property is in two ways. One is where you have a single owner, right? And one is where you have partnership. If you're a single owner of something, mostly we own something and we are single owners. So a car or a phone or a house or anything like that, generally people own it themselves. There's one particular owner. However, sometimes you have shared ownership. If you have something that has shared ownership, you're not allowed to put that as security. Anything that's shared ownership, you can't. Because remember we said those three things last week about the rahan. It has to be, muhawwaz. It has to be something that's all gathered together. Yeah, it has to be something which is farigh, mufarragh. No one else is using it. And it has to be something mumayyaz, distinguished, defined, distinguished. So if there's someone else who shares it, therefore it's not something that's solely for that person. There's someone else's rights involved in it. So la yajuzu rahnul musha'. That's the first thing. Number two, let's say, for instance, Ahsan has a tree, an apple tree, and the apples are still growing on the tree. Is it possible for Ahsan to say to Shakil, I'll give you as a security the apples on the tree? He's not picking them. If he picked them and gave it to him, that's fine, that is, because what has he done? He's separated them, he's made them distinct, from everything else, and he's given it to him. That's a valid rahan. But if he leaves them on the tree, that's not allowed. Yeah? So you can't do that. Unless he does this, the only way around it is he has to give the whole tree as a security. Now he's not going to pull the tree out the ground, but he's going to leave it there, but the entire tree with the fruit on it are going to be considered the rahan. Make sense? So la rahnu thamaratin, nor is giving a security of fruit on the top of a tree and a date palm, dun al-nakhl, without the date palm. Yeah, so whatever it's connected to, you have to give the entire thing, unless you separate it and you give the fruit on its own. Yeah, same with, for example, like let's say someone says a car I'm going to give the seats in the car except for the car. Yeah? Or I'm going to give the furniture in the house except for the house. Yeah, so you have to give everything. Right. Have you got that? Now same with, let's say there's land and there's wheat growing or there's rice growing. Can someone say whilst that wheat and rice is growing, I'm going to give you all of this wheat and rice whilst it's still growing in the land as security? No, you can't. You've got to give everything, including the deeds of the land. Give all.
It's not, giving fruits, perishable things. It's gonna, fade away. How is that a security?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it depends how long the
This is what I'm saying. Is there a time for that you read?
it's based on convention. Whatever the society, the urf dictates, that's what you're gonna. It could be like just a few days. It could be like hundreds and hundreds of acres of apple trees. Yeah, that's a lot.
Isn't the problem? I mean, you said earlier that you have to give possession. You have to take possession. So if you say to someone, right, I'm going to pledge you these apples, and they're still on the tree, but I retain the tree, then I don't get possession of the apples,
you don't.
do I?
Yeah, you don't.
But if you give me the whole tree, then even physically I can say that's my tree now. I've taken possession of it.
Yeah, possession. Yeah, but no ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possession. Okay. ولا زرع في الأرض دون الأرض. No, can you give rahn security as the zar, whatever grows in the earth, without the earth. Okay. And no, can you give a tree? Yeah. والأرض دونهما. So let's say, for example, there's a tree and it's got fruit on there. So you say, Hassan says, I'll give you the tree as a rahn, but not the fruit. No, you can't do that. Right? And I'll give you the land except for the wheat that's growing on it. You can't do that. Everything's got to be given. Okay, next. Because, it can't belong to someone else. Things like amana, trusts. Someone has left, their mobile phone with you. Someone has left a laptop with you. Someone has left something with you as a trust for you to keep safe. You're not allowed to give that as a rahn. So لا يصح الرهن بالأمانات. Right, and amanat were of different types. كالودائع. Wadi'a is basically like a deposit. You deposit in like a safety box deposit, where you deposit something there and you keep it there for a period of time. Wal awari is the jama of ariya, like something you lend to someone, something you borrowed to someone to use. Yeah, so you borrowed someone a computer, you borrowed someone a car, you borrowed someone whatever. That's called an ariya. So that you can't give as a rahn as well, because it belongs to someone else, other people's rights involved. Wal mudarabat is a silent partner transaction, where you have a silent partner and he gives his capital to a trader, and that trader invests that money in something else. So these investments that are done, right, because there's another person involved in there, other people's rights. So let's say there's a company, and that company is owned by a multiple number of people. So you can't give stocks in that company as security. You can't give commodity in a business. Yeah, so you can't do that because other people's rights are involved in there. You can't do that. So mudarabat is an example of that, where you have silent partner and you have the active partner. Active partner does all this work. He's the skilled employee, and the silent partner, he just invests. That's what he does. Yeah, financially. وَمَالُ shirka, and the wealth of shirka, shared ownership. Anything that's shirka, sharik, you have partners. Like I said, in stocks and all these things, businesses, you can't do that. So for example, the CEO of Apple can't come and say, right, I'm going to put Apple as my security. You can't do that because so many people are shareholders in that business.
But you could pledge your individual shares.
Your individual share, but again, because it's spread. Remember we said, لا يجوز رهن المشاع. So,
but the shares that you own in a company are your individual property.
Yeah.
They can be transferred from one person to another. They're my property. They're not in shared ownership.
Yeah.
Overall, I have an interest in the company because I own a share in the company, but I'm not pledging the company or its assets.
Yeah. So again, rahn al-masha' basically is the same thing as we said before.
Right.
So let's say there's a house. If there's two partners in the house, no one can say where the other person's share starts from and ends.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not physically something that can be defined, and Rahn has to be physically definable.
Right.
Now, this is the classical position. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's possible that today, maybe this is something which like contemporary experts have looked into and they've found some other possible. Yeah, because in the olden days it was something that couldn't really be, you couldn't define a share, whereas share in a company in assets, that can possibly look at in a different way. But if it's a shared ownership of a particular property or an item, can't be done.
So, if you do one of these things, then is it like a sin upon the person, or is it just contractually it's invalid?
Okay, so if a person does do any of this, it won't come under Rahn. It won't come under the rules of Rahn will not apply to it. What will apply to it will be that this is a trust in the other person's hand. If it gets damaged, then it gets damaged without any liabilities. Okay, no one's at loss here. No one's liable for it unless it's been unfairly sort of damaged. Everyone got that? Okay, next. وَيَصِحُ الرَّهْنُ بِرَأْسِ الْمَالِ السَّلَمِ. Now, okay, so
Sorry, you just said that if it becomes an amana and it's damaged, but if I ask you to hold my phone for me for a short while and you damage it, you're not liable to me?
yeah, unless I
Demolish it.
sorry?
Unless you did it out of malice.
Yeah, unless I transgress against it, unless I
Right.
damage it deliberately.
Right.
So, but if I, for example, I had my phone and I'm using my phone, all of a sudden someone outside ran, grabbed the phone off me and legged it, right? I won't be liable for that phone. Yeah. So long as I haven't done anything to it that causes damage, deliberate damage to it. Okay. Next. Now look at this. This is a question I can ask you now. Let's say, for example, this is a salam transaction. So we did salam transaction, if you remember. So in salam transaction, remember it's a deferred delivery of the item, but the price has to be given upfront. So Ahsan, let's say he's doing brother Siraj is doing a deal with Ahsan. Yeah, Siraj has given Ahsan £1,000 for delivery of 1,000 boxes of apples. 1,000 boxes of apples he wants by the end of May, and he's given 1,000. This £1,000 that has been received by Ahsan, received from Siraj to Ahsan, can Ahsan use this? Yeah, use this as a security. Let's say it wasn't cash. Let's say it's something else. Let's say it was rice, or let's say it was wheat, or let's say it was something else. Can this be used as a rahn?
Yes, I think if he's got it in his possession,
Yeah, that's it. So it's allowed. Simply because he owns it. Even though he hasn't delivered the goods yet. As soon as the contract was done, he was the owner of the price.
But if he doesn't deliver the goods, then the buyer, is he not entitled to his thing back?
Yeah, but remember,
that's another issue.
yeah, but remember we said before, when it comes to price is something which is not specific to that particular item.
Which is why when you gave the example of, let's say instead of cash, if it's cash I understand, but if somebody says, well, instead of cash, here's my car.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, you've got to pay
It's
with...
got to be something which is fungible.
Yes, well yes.
Yeah,
That
so it's
makes
got to be
sense,
something
yeah.
fungible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone understand that?
Yeah.
It's basically replaceable.
Mm.
Okay. وَيَصِحُ الرَّهْنُ بِرَأْسِ الْمَالِ السَّلَمِ. And Rahn is valid. Ahsan can do Rahn with the capital of Malus Salam. Yeah? Everyone understand that? So with Malus Salam, you can do what? Everyone understand that masla? So move on. Okay, next. Now, next masla, let's say for instance Ikram. Ikram is exchanging with him wheat for wheat. Is Ikram allowed to sell wheat for wheat?
As long as it's equal.
As long as it's equal, yeah. So he's got, let's say, Pakistani wheat, he's selling it for African wheat. Yeah, two different types, exchanging it. So this has been exchanged, and Ahsan is going to use this wheat as a rahn. Is that allowed?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's allowed. So, وَثَمَنُ الصَّرْفِ, And you can use the thaman of sarf as rahan. Okay, number 2. Number 3, look at this. Go back to that salam one again. How much apples does Ahsan owe Siraj?
1,000 boxes.
1,000 boxes, yeah? So these 1,000 boxes that are now ready and all they need to do is to be delivered to Siraj. Can Ahsan use these 1,000 boxes of rahan, of apples as a rahan for the car he's buying from Shakil? Yes or
No,
no?
because he has to give those. He's bound to give those.
But he doesn't have to give
See,
them.
but has he become the owner of them?
As long as it's in his possession, he can do what he likes with them.
Yeah, as long as it's his possession, he can do what he likes. Once they've been delivered to him, then that becomes his property.
And that goes back again to it's not specific. He,
Not
could give
specific.
he may have 2,000 boxes, so you can give this
Yeah.
1,000 and give him another 1,000.
Yeah. Everyone got that? So under those 3, yeah? So this is why you need to understand the other maslas in fiqh in order for you to understand a certain chapter. Because sometimes what the author will do, he'll bring various chapters thinking you already understand these, and now he's just going to say to you, remember this masla, Rahnul work here, Rahnul work here, Rahnul work here. And if you don't understand those, you're going to find it difficult to understand what he's saying here. Sometimes you have to understand a whole chapter just to understand one line in another chapter. This is how, this is why fiqh becomes complicated. And fiqh is all interlinked, remember. It's all interlinked because fiqh is basically the Quran and the Sunnah and the understanding of the Sahaba, and it's all put together, and all of this, the holistic understanding of this, is the same in wudu, in the same in salat, in the same in inheritance and buying and selling and all that. Does that make
So
sense?
with these examples, you just said it's for fungible items. So if it was something specific, then you can't.
Remember, rahan does not have to be fungible.
Yeah.
Rahan itself, when you give a rahan,
Mm.
doesn't necessarily have to be fungible in itself,
Yeah.
right? But because the item has to be something, yeah,
Yeah.
in salam has to be fungible. Okay, everyone got that? So, right, فَإِنْ هَلَكَ فِي مَجْلِسِ الْعَقَدِ. Right, let's say this happens now. Now to understand this, I need to adjust characters here. So, you know that salam masla and the sarf masla. We're going to take ikram out of this and we're going to take siraj out of this. We're going to bring it here now. Let's say the salam is also happening between these two as well. Shakil, coincidentally, has also ordered from Ahsan 1,000 boxes of apples. Forget Siraj, forget that happened. And he wants it by the end of May. So he's given him, let's say, some wheat or something else in exchange for that. Now what's happened is that Ahsan says to Shakil, you take the capital that you've given me, you take that as rahan, as collateral for the car that I want to buy from you. When I get the money, I'll give you that and then I'll take this collateral back off you. Have you got that?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So,
Okay.
Hassan is
Let me drink some water. Look, this is what happens. This is what happens here. Take a breath, guys, yeah? Relax. It's not end of the world. Yeah, not the end of the world. Okay, sometimes, you know, when you study something and you don't understand one thing, your focus is so much on that one thing that some people lose sleep and they kind of die as well. Just trying to figure out this one thing. So don't worry, let's start all again. Shakil has made an order with Ahsan. The order is at the end of May, on the 30th of May, I want 1,000 boxes of apples. Yes? Shakil, because it's salam transactions, Shakil has to give the capital up front. So he gives the capital, right? And the capital, let's say, is in the form of wheat, let's say. So he gives the capital, alright? Then what happens? Ahsan wants to buy his car. Another transaction, totally different. He says to Shakil, can I buy your car for you? How much? You got 1,000. Because okay, I ain't got 1,000 on me now. I'll have to go to the bank and get it. But for now, this capital, in the other transaction that you gave me, take this for now. Yeah? Take this. Does that make sense? Take this now. Yeah? and it's basically security with Shakil now. So now it's saying this. فَإِنْ هَلَكَ فِي مَجْلِسِ الْعَقْدِ. In this gathering, if the item got destroyed, if he destroyed this item, تَمَّ الصَّرْفُ وَالسَّلَمُ. Same thing with sarf as well. Let's say, for instance, that they did a transaction, a foreign exchange transaction. Yeah, they did it amongst each other. Foreign exchange. Let's say they did it in pounds and dollars. Yeah, and Shakil gave Ahsan dollars and he gave him pounds. Right? And then, right, they're still in the gathering, they're still in that gathering. He wanted to buy his car of him. So he said to him, look, how much is selling? 1,000. He goes, okay, hold these dollars for now. I'm gonna go get some pounds. I'll give you them. And then what happened was, windy day, and all the dollars got blown away. Yeah. So what happens now? فَإِنْ هَلَكَ فِي مَجْلِسِ الْعَقْدِ. In that particular gathering, if this collateral was to get destroyed, تَمَّ الصَّرْفُ. That sarf contract that just before this was happening, because they haven't separated, have they? And that salam contract, the forward sale contract, which had just happened prior to this security contract, what happens?
They're completed.
It's completed.
They both fulfilled the other.
Yeah, they both fulfill the other. Because remember, the key thing in the sarf and the salam is the cash has to be handed over, the price has to be handed over there and then. But because they're still in the gathering, shall I repeat again?
Can you repeat
Yeah.
that?
Okay, look. Let's say, for example, Shakil has done a transaction of forward sale with Ahsan. And he said to him, at the end of May, 30th of May, I want 1,000 bucks of apples. He goes, how much? He said, you have to pay, I don't know, this much wheat. Yeah, or even dollars, whatever. But it's got to be different from the money he owes him for the car, okay? So he gives him, and then they haven't separated, they haven't parted ways. He said, can I buy your car for you? He goes, okay. He goes, how much? He goes, 1,000. He goes, hold these dollars, and I'm going to go get the money, and then I'll give you.
These are the dollars that he's just given.
Yeah.
Right.
That you've just given him. The dollars that you've just given him, you exchange foreign currency. Pounds for dollars.
Yeah, I've given him.
Or in the salam contract forward sale.
The apples are going to come later.
Yeah, and then you get in dollars for that.
Right, but he's got the dollars.
He's got them.
Right.
Yeah, the contract is almost complete. All it requires is, receiving on both sides.
Yeah.
So what happens is, that cash that you gave him, he gave it back to you. You've got it, and
£1,000.
For the car, basically.
for the car you owe him 1,000. That's the next.
Right.
So you want to buy the car now. You don't have the 1,000, so you say hold this as a security, and the money gets
the
destroyed.
money which I've just given him,
Yeah.
I take back effectively
Yeah.
and hold it. Right.
That got destroyed.
Okay.
That got destroyed.
Yeah.
So therefore, the previous transaction, has it gone through or not?
No.
Has the sarf gone through? Has the foreign exchange transaction gone through? Because remember, it requires exchange.
Both sides.
And has the forward sale gone through? Because the forward sale requires price to be handed over.
And it was handed over.
It was handed over.
Yeah.
It was like the gathering hadn't finished yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Okay.
I do owe him 1,000 apples still though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I owe him 1,000 apples and £1,000.
Yeah.
But the surf was complete.
All we want to figure out is, through Rahn, through this scenario in Rahn, will the sarf and salam be done? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So we say yes, the cornerstones of sarf and salam have been fulfilled. Everyone got that? So, وَصَارَ الْمُرْتَهِنُ, and the murtahin will be considered to have mustawfiyan, received in full, لِحَقِّهِ, his right, hukman, legally. Legally, the courts will recognize that Shakil had been paid for his car. Yeah, he was paid for it. How was he paid for it? He was supposed to be given pounds, but because a security was handed over and he lost that security, so what happens now? That cancels out the money that he owes him, if they were equal. See how that works? Everyone got that? See, this is the good thing about fiqh. It makes you think. Yeah. And that's why, Sheikh Yusuf Qudoori used to say that transactions should be taught before ibadat, because transactions the part which makes you appreciate the complexities of, you know, the our tradition. So our tradition is a very kind of, you know, deep rooted, it's a complex, you know, set of rules, principles that the fuqaha have come up with. Yes, everyone understand that? We've got a bit of time. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Go on.
I wasn't here last week when you started this, so it might have been said. I mean, in this country, the traditional concept of pawning is you go to the pawnbroker, you borrow money from the pawnbroker, and you deposit something with him.
Yeah.
So you know
It's
these
the opposite.
yeah. So the
Completely opposite.
yeah. So the pawnbroking shops you have in
Yeah.
town, etc. You go there, you say, "I desperately need £500.
Take this watch.
Take this watch. It's worth 1,000. It's a
Mhm.
Rolex watch. Here's 1,000."
Yeah.
They will hold that for you, give you £500,
Yeah.
and then you, with interest obviously,
Yeah.
and a fixed date will be set. So in 3 months,
Yeah.
you have to pay me the £750 or
Yeah.
500 plus interest, and then you can get your watch back. Otherwise, we get to keep your watch.
Okay.
So if you default,
Yeah.
they keep your £1,000
Mm.
watch. They've given you 500, which is why when you go to the pawnbroking shops in town, they're selling merchandise.
Okay.
That's all merchandise that people
Ah.
have defaulted on, which they then keep,
Yeah.
and then they sell
Selling.
watches and laptops and all video games and all sorts of things. That's how pawnbroking this is a different concept altogether.
Yeah. This is
Giving security for payment
yeah,
on
something
a
you owe them.
contract. This is not borrowing, nothing
Yeah.
to do with borrowing.
Yeah.
It's like a mortgage, basically.
Yeah.
Mortgage. That's
Mortgaging, yeah. That's
Yeah.
why I said mortgaging sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that because see,
Pawnbroking has a very
what the way they do it, like you described now, the
Yeah.
conventional way, that doesn't fulfill the conditions that are mentioned by.
yeah, because there's no existing
Yeah.
liability, is there?
Yeah, and also because even if you're not unable to pay, they can't sell it.
Yeah.
Yes, legally, Islamically, you can't sell it. You actually goes to court, and then the courts will get the person, the rahib, to go and sell it. He has to, and if he doesn't sell it, then the courts step in and they'll sell it for you. So long as you get
Oh, okay.
permission from the courts
Right.
to sell it, otherwise you can't sell it on, just on your own.
Mm.
Everyone got that? Okay, so that's interesting.
Mm.
Okay, so وَإِذَا اتَّفَقَا عَلَى وَضْعِ رَهْنٍ. Now next, let's say for instance, let's say this happens now. Ahsan doesn't trust Shakil. Shakil doesn't trust Ahsan. Yeah, he might leave the collateral with him, but he doesn't trust him. Yeah, and he doesn't trust him with the car. So what they do is they get a third person. Yeah, a middleman, an arbitrator, third person, who they both are pleased with, is known as the adl. Just like in usul hadith you do adl, yeah. But this is just a person who is trusted by both parties. So they leave the trust, they leave the security with the third person. Yeah, the trust will be left with the third person. So therefore now, both of them, you know, can sleep in peace. So إذا اتفقا, if or when both parties agree على وضع رهن, to leave the rahan على يدي عدل, at the hands of an upright, trustworthy person, jaza, legally is permissible. Yeah, and so the rules, the same rules are going to apply. What are the same rules? Just as Ahsan was not allowed to touch that security when he was in the possession of Shakil. Likewise, if you put it in the possession of a third person, Ahsan is not allowed to touch that before payment is received, and nor is Shakil allowed to touch it now as well. And because it's not in his possession, it's in a third person's possession who is standing on behalf of him. Yeah, so laysa lil murtahin, it is not permissible for the murtahin, which is Shakil, wala lil rahin, Ahsan, akhduhu min yadihi, to take it from his hands. Now, what if it gets destroyed in this third person's hands? What's going to happen? So the same thing as though it was in the hands of Shakil. فَإِنْ هَلَكَ فِي يَدِهِ, if it gets destroyed whilst in the possession of the third person, هَلَكَ مِنْ ضَمَانِ الْمُرْتَهِنِ, it will be destroyed in the liability, as though it's in the liability of the murtahin. Yeah, Shakil. Everyone got that?
Does the third person have any liability if it's destroyed?
No.
Just a neutral group.
He's a neutral person that's been chosen. Yeah. So, I mean, it can be chosen by them, and sometimes courts can step in as well. A court can choose like a person to do this as well, job. And something like in Islamic, like in Islamic kind of scenario, you could have like people whose job it is just to do this. They might even get paid by the government to be guardians. Just like in this country, you have fostering and other things. And
We have them here for property as well. They're called receivers.
okay.
It's an official position to be a receiver.
And in Spain, they used to actually have, witnesses. There used to be official witnesses that were paid by the government to be official witnesses for like big cases and big sort of deals and transactions. Yeah. So everyone got up to there? You guys want to stop or do you want to continue? Yeah, continue. Good, shabash. Okay. Because I want to try and finish it. Oh, it's quite a long, isn't it? I want to try to finish it for next week. Because the next week is the next week the last week? No, it's
2 weeks.
1 week left, isn't it?
One more.
Before Ramadan. So 2 weeks left. So inshallah, by Ramadan we should get to Kitab al-Hajar. Yeah. Okay. Alright. Right. Can you use cash as a security? Yes. يجوز رهن الدراهم. You can use silver coins. والدنانير. You can use gold coins. You can use makil, something that's measured in cups. You can use mawzoon, something that's measured in weight, as a security. All these are fine. Yeah. فَإِنْ رُهِنَتْ بِجِنْسِهَا وَهْلَ هَلَكَتْ. If this item was given in exchange for something of its own genus. Let's say, for instance, a totally new scenario. So let's say Shakil buys from, or Ahsan buys from Shakil basmati, Indian basmati rice. Yeah. And Ahsan's supposed to give him £100. So Ahsan says, look, I don't have this, but you know what I have? I have Japanese rice, Japanese sushi rice. Yeah, you want that as a security? Remember, they're both the same genus. But okay, he keeps it with him. So if the rice gets destroyed, the Japanese rice gets destroyed, and it's exactly the same quantity as the other rice, then what happens? Cancels
it out.
Yeah, cancels out. So فَإِنْ رُهِنَتْ بِجِنْسِهَا وَهَلَكَتْ, and it gets destroyed. The Japanese rice, which is now a security in the hands of Shakil, gets destroyed, got eaten up somehow, middle of the night. Yeah, someone ate it. هَلَكَتْ بِمِثْلِهَا مِنَ الدَّيْنِ, then it will be cancelled out with exactly the same of what was owed to him. So in other words, whatever was owed to him, what was owed to him?
Equal amount.
Yeah, so sorry, whatever Ahsan owed to him, this thing cancelled out from that. Yeah, so in other words, that rice and the rice that he has taken from him and the rice that he's given, both will cancel each other, because that was the liability, wasn't it?
Is that the same because of the Salam rules that they have to be
No.
like for like?
No, they
nothing
don't.
to do
Nothing
with
to do.
that.
حلقت بمثلها من الدين وإن اختلفا, even if they differ in jawda wa siyagha. In other words, even if the two items are different in quality, right? He has purchased of him high quality rice and he's given as security low quality rice. Or siyagha is like design. So he purchased of him, silver for gold. He didn't have the gold, like he wanted to buy off Shakil silver, 1 kilogram of silver, in exchange for 100 grams of gold, right? So what happened was he gave a security of silver, silver for silver, and they got destroyed. So remember, we don't look at the quality, we don't look at the design on those 6 things. Remember those six riba issue things. We don't look at those. So as long as it gets cancelled out, that's it.
But in practice, why would you ever give security in cash because you're paying the price then effectively, aren't you?
Yeah, but so he's kind of asked for, or you've sold it for gold, and he's supposed to give you gold, but he's only got silver on him,
Right.
a different kind of silver. Let's say he's got some bangles or something.
So it wouldn't really work in practice here if
It wouldn't work with fiat
if
currency.
somebody says here's £1,000 in cash, that's
Yeah,
the
no.
price. You might as
Yeah,
well.
it won't work in currency because that's obviously what you own. So why
Yeah.
don't you just give it? That's how the scenario I'm trying to avoid cash. Everyone got that? Okay. Okay, I think we'll stop there. Any questions? Yeah. Rahn is one of the difficult chapters. Yeah. Rahan's difficult. I think besides the Rahan, Hajar is not difficult. Next one's coming up. That's just to do with restrictions the government puts on people from buying and selling. And other ones are quite straightforward.
I just wanted to clarify the whole scenario about whether you're liable for the item or not. Because partway through, I think it was mentioned that there's no liability. So I'm just mistaken that was for a different scenario.
That's for Amana, that is.
That's for Amana.
This is not Amana.
Okay. This
Yeah.
is just.
Yeah, because this is
you're doing it as a security.
Security is in exchange for a liability, whereas Amana is not in exchange for anything. So, I mean, they're both non-commutative.
So can you give an example of Amana as a competitor? So we've been using the example of a phone for a car, isn't it? We've given
No, you
the phone
can't.
as a
You
security.
can't use Amana in Rahan.
No, you would.
Amana's got nothing to do with Rahan.
Amana is, I mean, I'm going on holiday, my
Yeah.
house is unsafe, so I leave my gold with you, just leave it with you for safekeeping. That's
Okay.
Amana.
Alright.
Yeah. So then what happens? You take that gold you have in your house, and unfortunately, if thieves come to your house, they've robbed the gold from you.
Okay. You're not allowed.
So when he comes back, he can't ask you for it, unless he can prove that you didn't show due diligence in taking care of it.
That's the same here. Same all here.
I mean, they probably got it from the
Yeah, it's
standard
the
law.
same exactly here.